Hey guys, how's it going? So I'm here for week 1 of ShakeTube. ShakeTube is a read-along of many Shakespeare plays hosted by Steve Donahue, Jason of Old Booth Chapter and Verse, and myself, where we all read a bunch of Shakespeare plays together. All three of us are doing different sets of Shakespeare plays, and we're reading one play per week. The first 3 weeks, we're all doing different plays. The last week, we're all getting together and reading The Two Gentlemen of Verona. I will leave a link in the description to the schedules of everyone's reading list. And the play that I'm covering for the first week is King John. So King John is one of Shakespeare's early history plays. It arguably inaugurates the great series of history plays that he would go on to write in the two parts of Henry IV, Henry V, Richard III, Henry VI plays, the Richard II play, etc. Because at the end of King John, King Henry III takes over, and he is the father of Henry IV, who, we would meet, obviously, in the Henry IV plays. So King John does sort of kick off that whole series of plays that it would, in a sense, end with Henry VIII, which is arguably less connected with the others, but which is still an interesting play that I believe Steve is going to be covering it at some point in ShakeTube. So King John tells the story of King John, who a lot of you may know as the King of England, who was forced by the nobles of England to sign the Magna Carta to sort of limit his power a little bit. He was the successor to Richard the Lionheart, who is obviously really famous. And he did reign. Historically, he reigned for 17 years, but this play takes place over the course of a few weeks, so it's a much condensed version of the story of his reign. And the main premise of this play, the main thrust of the story, is that King John's nephew, Arthur, has a claim to the throne, or claims to have a claim to the throne. Arthur is a young boy, possibly like a teenager. It's a bit unclear in the context of the play anyway. But Arthur is the son of King John's brother, Geoffrey, who arguably was the rightful heir to the English throne, which would make Arthur technically the rightful heir since he's his son. And Arthur is in France and has the support of King Philip of France, who wants to put Arthur on the throne. And so yeah, this conflict over the English throne is what constitutes the main conflict of this play, and all the twists and turns that come with that. This play is very heavy on action and very light on commentary or meditation. It's definitely a bit more of style over substance, I suppose. And in that sense, it is a really good play. I could see it being a really effective theatrical experience. It really doesn't have a dull moment in it. It is very fast-paced. It has 2 battles, which is more than any other Shakespeare plays, I think. And yeah, it's just full of intrigue and characters who aren't Shakespeare's most compelling creations, but who I could see as very effective in the hands of good actors. So what I see 2 things as very interesting aspects of this play. And the first one is the prominence of women. There are 2 particular women of authority in this play, like women who are high status and hold power over the men around them. And it comes in the form of Eleanor, who is the mother of King John, and also by extension the grandmother of Arthur, since she was also Geoffrey's mother. Even though King John is, the ruler of England, you get the sense, sort of runs the show. You get the sense, is a bit of a doofus. And then the second woman who is prominent here is Constance, who is Arthur's mother, the wife of Geoffrey. And she advocates really hard for Arthur. I get a strong sense that she wishes she could do more for him. If she probably wishes she could do what a man could do in her position. Because she's a woman, she can't lead an army out to fight King John, but she would like to. And her forceful advocacy for Arthur and her grief when he dies is incredibly compelling. In fact, there's this really striking speech, which is the most. Marjorie Garber says in her chapter in Shakespeare After All about this play that her speech after she finds out about Arthur's death is probably the most quoted part of this play. And it is really interesting because this passage is just about sort of the abstract idea of grief. You could almost take it out of the context of the play and just apply it anywhere to your life. when you've experienced a great loss, which is interesting considering the fact that all the events of this play are this, like, really epic, you know, historical drama. So to have this, like, one part that is slightly more meditative in this really action-packed, fast-paced play is interesting. But she, I could see being a really interesting character in the hands of a good actress, even though I think she does get a bit repetitive. She has a lot of longish speeches about her desire to see her son on the throne that do kind of get a bit tiresome. But so, I thought that was interesting that there were these two women who were really prominent in this play, because in most of Shakespeare's other plays, there are certainly prominent female characters, but they tend to be sort of young, feisty, intelligent women, and they tend to be more prominent in the comedies than in the tragedies or the histories. So it certainly is interesting to have a history play with two you know, powerful women sort of running the show in certain ways. And the other major aspect of this play that I think is interesting is the character of the Bastard of Falconbridge. So the Bastard of Falconbridge is the illegitimate son of Richard the Lionheart and the Lady of Falconbridge, who the Lady of Falconbridge slept with Richard the Lionheart when her husband was away, and she got pregnant by him and gave birth to this boy who was previously named Philip, but who at the beginning of this play is knighted by King John as Richard Plantagenet. He sort of, at the beginning of this play, the bastard sort of embraces his status as a bastard, as the son of Richard the Lionheart. But what's interesting about him, I think, is that he, as Harold Bloom says in his chapter in Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human, on this play, the Bastard of Falconbridge is probably Shakespeare's first real prominent personality that he creates. He's very sort of almost cynical, but he has a great sense of humor. He's probably the only character in this play with at least a lick of introspection. He has some good soliloquies to the audience, which kind of show you that he kind of knows that this courtly life and everything going on is a lot of theater, and a lot of it is kind of flattery and BS in a sense. But he decides to play along with it anyway because he sort of has to, but he also sort of jokes around about it. You know, he has some quips during the play that are kind of funny, and yeah, so he is a really nice character. I could see an actor having a really fun time with him, and I can definitely see in that sort of cynical attitude that sort of sees the BS around him, but sort of embraces it out of pragmatism and just out of enjoyment. I can see in that the seed that would become the character of Falstaff, and maybe Hamlet to an extent, but more so Falstaff. So yeah, anyway, all that being said, I did enjoy this play, but, you know, again, it doesn't have that much in the way of really compelling themes, human or political themes. There are some speeches in it from characters who aren't Falconbridge or Constance that get kind of tedious. There are a few really long speeches that just kind of don't actually say that much, even if the language is kind of beautiful. And so that got a bit tiresome. But yeah, again, I enjoyed this play. It reads really quickly because, again, it's fast-paced. So yeah, I think it's worth reading, if only for its sort of place in Shakespeare's development as a dramatist. So anyway, that's King John, and next week I will be covering Love's Labour's Lost, one of Shakespeare's sort of middle comedies, which Harold Bloom, interestingly, argues is like his first major work where he gets rid of the prominent influence of Christopher Marlowe, who was a big influence on plays like King John and earlier plays of his. So Love's Labour's Lost I really like, so I'm looking forward to talking about it. But anyway, that was all. If you read King John, give me your thoughts, and I will talk to you all later. Bye, guys.